I was born by the river in a little tent. And oh, just like that river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know change is gonna come. Oh, yes, it will. I'm Kim Poole. I'm a soul fusion performing artist and also the founding fellow of the Teaching Artists Institute. I'm the chief visionary. I understand the importance of bringing artists to decision-making tables and giving them an opportunity to use that creativity and innovation and to teach every sector in society what design thinking is. Give them permission to be artists, traditional artists. Allow them to tap into those traditional mediums so that they can bring that back to their sector and work with the creativity of the artist class. From the beginning, it has been our goal to encourage other sectors to respect the artist class. Traditionally, artists have been relegated to the margins of society, and it's time for them to take their rightful place at decision-making tables so that they can help us define reality. They always have. Popular culture, youth popular culture, artists, they live in this world, but we aren't giving them the credit. And once we collectively acknowledge their work, and embrace it, then artists will never starve again. We will integrate them into every sector in a way that's sustainable. So it's not just sustainability for the community holistically, using that creativity, being more innovative, but it's also sustainability for the artist class. A teacher is an artist, but is the artist necessarily in the classroom? Well, they should be. An artist is a healer, but is the artist in the hospital room? Maybe they should be. And so finding ways to integrate artists into every sector will make sure they eat. Artists need to eat, but it benefits the sector because it gives them an opportunity to grow in ways they've never imagined. In 2014, I used my music as a tool to remind us that we have something to say and we can do something about the problems that we see in our community. And the drummer in my band, his name was Dutton. He said, when you were on stage, you said that we should do something. Well, what should we do? And I told him, I said, listen, it was hypothetical. I mean, like, you should get out there and be doing something. Not that I had something specifically for you to do. And he looked so disappointed. He said, but it seems so real. And once again, I felt like I was just the talk. We have so many people that talk about what needs to happen and they're just talking. They're not doing anything. But I thought, I've been in Nigeria for 3 months now. I left my job temporarily. I came and I did this campaign. We raised money and awareness. We had newspaper articles and TV interviews. We worked with the president of the Musicians Union, Priti Okofor of Nigeria. And I thought, this is a big deal. But he reminded me that it was temporary and that this was just extended talk, what we had done. And so when I got back home to the US, I decided that it should be a something, that we should create something where artists are continually engaged in social transformation. And so we created the Thai Fellowship Program, and we took traditional artists and we encouraged them to find an area of society they were passionate about and to create a project that basically blended the two. And that worked for a while, and it just grew from there. Now we do tours. Now we do study abroad and cross-cultural exchange. We do advocacy around global African cross-cultural communication. I mean, we found ourselves in some of the most unique places. We're working in Uganda, Tanzania, Liberia, Ghana, the Gambia, Jamaica. They've been dormant since the pandemic. A lot of them actually moved from Jamaica to the US, but we still have love for Nanny Town. And of course, in the States, where it kind of began, US, Nigeria. somewhere in between. So I now think that because we've attempted to add structure to our random projects, each project goes underneath of a certain category in our organization. And so we do still work with the Thai Fellowship Program, which was our initial initiative. But we have other programs like under Thai Studies and Cultural Exchange. We do a Summer Learning Institute where we bring in young people in college from around the world, and we bring them into Tanzania. And so we teach them what we call the art of possibility, so that we're not always trying to play catch up, going to sectors full of people that were trained to not respect art, to not embrace their creativity, and trying to help them unlearn everything they've learned. Now we're saying, okay, let's plant seeds from the beginning while you're still in your early matriculation through your education. Let us talk to you now about the power of innovative design thinking, co-creation, and what that means for any sector that you decide to study. And so we use artists, traditional and non-traditional, to teach these college students. And so they stay in Tanzania for 3 weeks. Just an example of one of our study abroad programs. We also do our conference, which is our biggest event all year, Artisan. Again, connecting artists and art culture to sustainable development on purpose. And so this being our 6th year, our first year was in Ghana. Like many great first things, shout out to Kwame Nkrumah. And then we went to the Gambia. In the Gambia, 2016, Adama Barrow, it was his first year in office. Yahya Jammeh, seen as a dictator, he was removed from office. And Adama, being new, President Adama, being new to office, he was looking for ways to basically jumpstart the country. And so one of our contacts connected us with his office. So we sat down and we met and we talked about the importance of bringing artists to the decision-making table from the beginning. And so I feel like that's one of our best examples of working with leadership, grassroots and grass tops, connecting them to achieve sustainability for our communities. And so we did that in the Gambia. And in the Gambia, we decided that having a conversation about these topics and ideas and showing examples from other places, it wasn't enough. We had to be a part of the implementation. And so we're still in the Gambia. We have land, we're building, we have a compound office in Bakau in the city. And we have a lot of work to do there, but we're working. It's a process. And I think that's the point. All of our initiatives in each region of the world, we're in process. We're 7 years old. We're a young organization in comparison to some of our elders that have been doing this work 30 plus years. But we've got the energy and we're ready. Well, I'm an artist first. And though the Teaching Artists Institute provides an opportunity for me to do arts administration, orchestrating programs and paperwork, I'm still an artist, and Kim Pool music is very important to me. It keeps me grounded. Right now, it's more of a personal journey, but I do have a few shows planned this December in Ghana. I'll be performing for their president. They have a presidential ball, and so I've been invited to perform, and I applied for this musical festival in Zanzibar next February. But I don't have as much time as I used to be just the artist. But I'll tell you, for me, artistry started in Baltimore on the underground scene, but it flourished overseas, especially on the continent. There was nothing like going into venues in Ghana for their music festivals, and even for the tour with the young ladies for the Chibok, going into venues and see a sea of people, auditoriums full of people. And they didn't care that I wasn't Beyonce, not even Jill Scott, but they respected good music. It's like, oh, okay, you're from the States. I've never heard of you, but let's go. We're willing to listen. And the fact that it didn't matter about the branding, that they were willing to connect with good music in the moment. We've done major performances with the Sonike people in Senegal and their stadiums. It's been quite the journey, but what I will say is every local artist should have the opportunity to see what their art will do internationally. And so one of the things that we do with the Teaching Artists Institute is we provide an opportunity for artists to get international exposure, because the most success I've ever seen as an individual artist was overseas. And had I stayed in Baltimore, in my local city, I would still just be local Kim, Kim Poole music. And so it was nice to go on a larger platform and compete and see that I was qualified to be there, that my music was just as good, that people enjoyed it just as much. And so I'm a big advocate of making sure that you get exposure beyond your city. It makes a difference. And I learned that in my personal journey, because it wasn't until I left Baltimore, when I started to perform overseas, that I felt, famous, right? I'm not famous. I'm still underground. But it's one thing to be famous and then to feel famous. And I've had moments where I felt like, wow, these people have come to see me. And it was a great feeling. And I think that keeps the art going. Artists need to feel appreciated. It wasn't about the money. They paid for our expenses. In the US, we see these 10 cents a day commercials. Oh, just 10 cents a day will save this child in a village. And the child has flies all over their eyes. Their belly is swollen with hunger. And, you're like, oh my God, Africa is struggling. But, when I started to sing overseas, which is the reason I first began to come, I said, these people lied to us. Africa is rich. They've paid all of my expenses, paid for my band. They've got me up in these nice hotels and I'm performing, and all of these people are here to come and see me. And that, I'm glad that I had that impression as an artist, so that I could bring it back to, all the people like me that grew up seeing these 10 cents a day commercials. And we were able to shift the narrative about what Africa was and the opportunities that it had to offer. And so as an artist, that was a great feeling. I have worked with the World Bank around what we call the creative economy. The motto of our organization is that culture is the new currency. And so we understand that as we think about economy, we have to determine as a community, as a people, what is of value. And that helps us to change our relationship with the current currency that tells us you're poor or you're rich. Because the truth is people with money, they are exploiting artists and creators. And what they're telling them is that, you're worth this much. And so I'll give you this much. But then they take what they see as an opportunity. And then in the marketplace, they're able to get double and triple on what they gave you for whatever you created. And so it's because they value what you have. And so I think that when I go on platforms like the World Bank and I talk to their, practitioners, accountants, it's a multifaceted platform. I remind them of the value of values and the importance of putting energy into the creative economy. They don't talk enough about it. I think that, the temporary moments that they give us artists to get on their microphones and their platforms to speak on our own philosophy about how the world works, or sometimes for just promotional sake. And I feel like if they spent more time in communication with artists on the regular basis, if they had artists in residence that could continue conversations around the creative economy, etc., I feel like it would really make a difference. It could really inspire a paradigm shift. We could change the atmosphere. But for them, I think having me or other artists on their platform is just like a fun day. It's like, yes, let's invite that Kim Poole girl. Let's bring her in. Let her talk about, the value of values and her cultural, currency. But I think if they had those conversations on a regular basis, that it would benefit us all. Our wealth in this world is held by each of us. But it's not valued properly. And so I think that changing our value system is a part of what the World Bank could help us do, because they have a microphone. For us in the Teaching Artists Institute, art is simply creation, even ideas. The moment that you think of something, you've created something, and you are the artist. And so we're here to unlearn what the artist is and their role in societal development. We're very African-centered as an organization. And in the African worldview, in the village setting, you had different roles, right? Different responsibilities. Some of those roles were like drummers, griots, storytellers, and they had a specific purpose. And the griot always had a house. They always had food because they held the history of the village. And yes, they were connected to the youngest amongst the village, and they made sure that they understood the history, that they preserved and promoted it. But it wasn't just story for story's sake. It wasn't Hollywood or Nollywood or Bollywood. It wasn't just because we are entertained by your story. It was because you are a library and we're protecting our lineage, our legacy as a people. The drummer, we all love parties. We love that beat, right? The Afro beat. But the drummer in the African village was more than just a drummer. They were a communication system. When there was war, if someone was born, they reminded the people that we have another way outside of language to communicate. Pay attention, understand different cadences, for different reasons. And so now the drummer is just the track. They're just the entertainment, the hired help. Maybe an after-school program for the kids. And those things are great. But as a result, the griot, storytellers, or the drummer, they're not sustainable. When they don't have a gig, they don't eat. And so we want to not only value traditional artists and reintegrate them into society as they would have been in an African worldview, make them more effective, make them more holistic, but we also want to teach other sectors that they too are artists. Last year, our conference was in South Africa, and I love choral music. I grew up doing choral music, and in South Africa, hands down, they have some of the best. And it wasn't about the best singer, the expert singer. Everybody was a singer. The choir was everybody. And when I did the Artisan Ambassadors Roundtable in South Africa, I sang Malaika. With Malaika, Nakupenda Malaika. And I was performing, I'm like, I'm about to do a little mini show. And before I could get to the next stanza, everybody was singing along with me. So it was a sing-along as opposed to, me singing, them listening, waiting to clap. And that is what art is. In an African worldview, art is everybody. It's not an expert. It's not something that we do at museums. And when we want to engage, we go to that place where they do art every day, all the time, everybody. That's what art is. And our conference wants to remind us of that these buildings, that even agriculture is culture. And so when we remind the traditional artists that they are of value, that they matter, that they're integrated in every sector of society, and then we teach and help other sectors unlearn that they are also artists, right? That they are free to create, that when you're growing up and you say, Mom, I want to be a singer, and she says, no, you be a doctor. We don't need any singers. Or, I want to be a painter, and they say, no, you'll be an attorney. You're going to be a lawyer. We don't want any, painters. To remind them that, no, use that innovative energy that you felt as you were developing. Your attorney needs that. Your doctor needs that. And to let them know the innovative energy, there is no separation. It is the same. The question is, how will you wield that energy? What will you create? Create what we need. Imagine a better future. And so our conference, we're connecting artists and art culture to sustainable development on purpose. And we chose Kenya because we were invited. We only go where we're invited. We connect with a small army of teaching artists around the world. And so Boniface, Betty, he invited us from the Green String Network. He was one of our speakers in South Africa. And he said, you know what? Kenya needs to be next. We have to bring this thing to Kenya. And I said, okay, Boniface, why not? We were also invited to Zimbabwe this year, but we appreciated the fact that Boniface saw what was coming because he was there in South Africa. And so we chose Kenya. We almost declined. Being an election year, sometimes there's upheaval after the election if the people don't agree. And so it was a risk. But it was a good risk, and I'm glad we took it. Please follow us on social media, or you should do that anyway. www.facebook.com/teachingartists. One word, teaching artists. Inbox us. If you're out there doing the work, if you're innovating, you're design thinking, you're co-creating, we want to work with you. Please reach out to us, follow us on social media, and let us help spread information about your brand.